Sometimes a case is not what it seems to be. Sometimes all that the eyes see is just a small part of a larger act, a tip of the iceberg. Because when an overlord of a crime syndicate is killed by law enforcement, it is not necessarily the end of the nexus. In another instance, when someone goes missing, it does not always mean that they have been kidnapped by criminals. This is Prime Crime, a WION special series. I'm your host Dharamjot Kaur. Welcome to the show. When US President Donald Trump launched a war on fentanyl last year, a new threat began rising south of the border. Mexican drug cartels were cashing in, and cocaine was making a deadly comeback to the United States. At the center of it all stood Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, the ruthless kingpin climbing steadily to the top of this entire saga. Oseguera grew up poor, selling avocados in rural Mexico. But his story changed. Fueled by America's resurging appetite for cocaine, his empire was expanding at breakneck speed. For decades, El Mencho had forged the Jalisco New Generation cartel into a deadly transnational force, powerful enough to reshape Mexico's criminal landscape. As the Sinaloa cartel fractured under the infighting and bloodshed, Jalisco moved in, seizing the throne as the world's deadliest drug powerhouse. But on this past Sunday, the unthinkable happened. The army breached his stronghold. Mexico's most wanted man, the leader of the feared Jalisco New Generation cartel, was killed during a security operation aimed at capturing him. El Mencho was captured after forces tracked down a romantic partner that he was meeting. The US here had given Mexico information that assisted the entire operation. But El Mencho died while being transported to the capital after suffering serious injuries in violent clashes between his supporters and the army. Oseguera was considered the last of the drug lords who acted in the flashy, brutal mold of the now imprisoned Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Ismael Almayo Zambada. The United States had listed him as its most wanted drug trafficker, offering a $15 million reward for his capture. Oseguera was born in a small town of Aguililla, a town that is in the western part of Mexico, a gateway to the harsh mountainous region where illegal marijuana plantations flourished, and it's what he saw throughout his childhood. As a young man, he migrated to the US, where he was arrested, jailed, and subsequently deported for heroin trafficking. On returning to Mexico, he joined the Milenio criminal cartel, but infighting later forced him to drop out of the group. In the year 2009, the Sinaloa cartel, founded by Joaquin El Chapo in the 90s, was formed with the Matazetas, or the Zeta killers. The Matazetas rose to notoriety within 2 years of its formation. But Oseguera later broke away to set up his own cartel, the Jalisco New Generation, or the CJNG. After the extradition of Guzman and Zambada to the United States, he transformed his nexus into the most powerful group in Mexico. Now, this nexus maintained a vast network of hitmen, even making its own weapons, and expanded into several Mexican states. In the year 2020, Oseguera ordered an unprecedented attack on the then chief of the Mexico City Police, Omar Garcia Harfuch. He wounded the man and killed 3 others. Garcia Harfuch is now the country's head of public security. During a wave of terror in Jalisco back in 2015, CJNG gunmen ambushed members of law enforcement, including a state police convoy on a highway. And they did that using an RPG to shoot down a military helicopter. Dozens of police personnel were killed, including 20 officers and 9 military soldiers. Osiguera carved a path to power through violence and bloodshed. But for a long time, he could not compete with the cartels that controlled the border region with the United States. Instead, he targeted other markets and diversified his drug offerings. El Mencho got lucky with Trump administration's crackdown on immigrants more recently. In fact, there are reports which indicate that Trump's campaign to deport undocumented immigrants from the US diverted the attention of federal agencies from drug trafficking interdiction efforts. Now, Jalisco cartel heavily benefited here. El Mencho's network transported cocaine by the ton from Colombia to Ecuador and then north to Mexico's Pacific coast via speedboats and so-called narco subs. After El Mencho's death, many are drawing comparisons to Pablo Escobar, the leader of the Medellin cartel of Colombia. Now, this cartel ruled the global cocaine trade with brute force and violence, including targeted assassinations, even of political figures, until Escobar's death in 1993. That led to the collapse of the entire cartel that once provided 90% of the world's cocaine. After El Mencho's killing, one name that began to gain prominence is of Abraham Jesus Ambriscano, in short, who's known as El Yogurt. He is being seen as El Mencho's successor, and at just 28 years of age, he is identified by federal authorities as one of the main regional chiefs of the criminal group and as responsible for an armed structure with a presence in the western and southeastern regions of Mexico. El Yogurt was born in 1997 and he began his criminal career in the ranks of Los Viagra. The organization was a part of Carteles Unidos, which is a bloc that confronted the CJNG in the Tierra Saliente region of Mexico. Amid all of this, for the Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, the fall of Nemesio Osiguera is a major victory, one that will resonate all the way to Washington, D.C., where Donald Trump demanded action on fentanyl trafficking. But there are gaps and questions here, because this is not a one-way trade-off. Easy access to guns in the United States has created an iron river of firearms that are flooding Mexico's black market. The Mexican defense minister had just said that about 80% of the weapons recovered during the arrest and killing of El Mencho came from the United States. There are reports that further reveal that key fentanyl smuggling routes from Mexico were left unstaffed, as officers previously assigned there were reassigned to process detained migrants. So the big question is this: did this facilitate illegal arms trade alongside drugs? And how did this in the past go on for years unchecked? Who turned a blind eye? Or worse, who benefited from it? This story is far from over.